Good evening, friend. Wherever you may be, loosen the day from your shoulders and settle into stillness. We are journeying back 9 centuries to a modest valley in the English countryside where the slow rhythm of agrarian life beats like a quiet drum beneath the turning sky. The year is 1187, though no villager here would bother with precise numbers. They count seasons, not centuries. The hamlet of Greenford rests in the hollow of 2 rounded hills, its handful of timber-framed cottages clustered around a single earthen track. Thatch roofs, the color of dry wheat, slope low to shrug away the rain. In winter, they are dusted with frost that glitters like powdered glass at dawn. In summer, they shimmer beneath the sun, like the fur of a well-fed mare. Imagine arriving on a moonlit night. Your boots press into crisp ground, each footfall muffled by fallen leaves. The only light comes from scattered slits of shuttered windows and the faint red eye of a distant cooking fire. Above, the stars hang weightless, undimmed by torch or lantern. An owl coasts between elms, its wings silent, and somewhere, a stream runs under frost-slick stones, whispering a lullaby older than scripture. You draw a breath, the air tastes of peat smoke, cold water, and the spice of wood rot on last year's hay. At the hamlet's center stands a low wooden cross. It marks Greenford's meeting place, but this night finds it deserted, save for a limp rag of cloth tied years ago by a child at play. Beside the cross squats the bakehouse, a round building of wattle and daub. Its door stands open a thumb's width, leaking a thread of warmth that curls into the dark. Earlier today, the villagers baked coarse loaves of maslin, half rye, half wheat. Now the oven slumbers, ember-red bricks cooling, while the scent of crust and cracked grain fades into the hush. We pass the smithy, closed until dawn. Its iron tools sleep beneath a pine pitch torch, long extinguished. We pass the byre, a lean-to shelter where 3 cows chew methodically, breath pluming in silver clouds. One lifts her head, tail swishing, but she does not low. She knows this human scent. She has known it every night since she calved. A gate creaks. We step onto a strip of meadow that borders the church field. No church stands here yet, only a narrow timber chapel the villagers began 2 summers past, raising oak beams in the tradition of their fathers. Each Sabbath, Brother Caleb, a wandering monk from a distant priory, recites Mass beneath its slanted roof while birds nest in the eaves overhead. You may hear him next Sunday chanting the Kyrie, his voice echoing against bare planks while children fidget on woven rushes. But tonight, the meadow is empty, and our destination is beyond it. A lone cottage poised at the field's edge, half sheltered by a stubborn yew. This is the home of Robert of Greenford, carter, ploughman, father of 3. And it is Robert's year we shall share. Within those walls we will taste the slow sweetness of common labor, mending harness in February, lifting the first furrow in March, cutting hay beneath a June sun, and carrying the sweat-scented sheaves of August harvest. We will feel the sting of cold mornings, the ache of calloused palms, the quiet miracle of bread split among family. And when winter returns, we will rest beside Robert's hearth as snow subdues the world outside, and he counts the seed grain for yet another spring. For now, stand beneath the yew and gaze upon the cottage door. A thin crack glows along its threshold. Somewhere inside, a single tallow candle burns low. Listen. There beneath the slow swell of wind, you may catch the breathy snore of sleeping children, the soft cluck of a hen roosting on the rafters, the creak of roof timbers answering each gust. The world narrows to darkness, and darkness is gentle. This is Greenford, the night is long, and the year ahead unfurls like a scroll across the table of time. Let us step quietly inside. Chapter 1. January. Deep winter rest. The first chant of the cock is still hours away when Robert stirs beneath a woolen blanket. The bedroom is no more than a low loft tucked beneath the thatch, reached by a ladder, smooth with years of gripping hands. His breath appears in little plumes. Beside him, his wife Alice sleeps, her braided hair coiled under a linen coif. At their seat, two younger children nest together under a patchwork of scraps. The eldest, Emma, hardly 12, sleeps on a straw pallet close enough to the central hearth that she may feed its embers if they fade. Outside, January grips the land. The previous evening's snow has crystallized, covering the yard in shards that glitter where moonlight still lingers. No plough will break frozen earth today, and no ox will strain against the yoke. Winter is a time of patient waiting, for light, for warmth, for the faint green promise of March. Yet the farm is never idle. It hums quietly, like a spinning wheel at dusk. Robert's eyes open fully. Habit, more than need, pulls him from sleep. He listens. The cottage timbers groan beneath a gust, but the roof holds. A distant pop from the hearth confirms the banked ash is still alive. Satisfied, he closes his eyes again. A farmer's rest is not a luxury. It is a tool as important as the whetstone for his scythe. Muscles rebuild by firelight, dreams tilling unseen fields. Dawn creeps slowly. Pale blue leaks through slats where shutters fail to meet. Robert rises at last, easing stiff knees. The ladder carries him to the main room, an oblong space dominated by the hearth. There, last night's log has collapsed into curved shards, glowing like dragon scales. He takes a sliver of dry birch and nudges the embers. They blossom orange. Soon a gentle flame fingers upward, casting warm stripes across the packed earth floor. The children descend. Emma fists her eyes, then chooses a seat near the fire to lace rush sandals. William, age 8, yawns so wide it seems his jaw will snap. Agnes, only 5, hides her face against her mother's skirts. Alice scoops porridge from a clay pot suspended in yesterday's bathwater. An overnight soak softens the oats, saving precious firewood. She adds a spoon of honey from the last autumn harvest. Robert watches the amber thread coil like sunlight into grey mash. Breakfast is eaten slowly, wooden spoons scraping wood bowls. They chew each bite long. In winter, the stomach must learn patience. There is no glut of summer fruit, no roasted hare. Yet the oats are warm, and honey reminds the tongue that flowers will bloom again. After the meal, Alice sets Emma to carding wool, fluffing fleece with bowed paddles set with iron teeth. The younger children pick burrs from a basket of dried beans. Robert knots a cloak at his neck. Outside chores await. He steps into snow, the crust squeaking beneath weight. First, he checks the stored root cellar, wooden bins asleep with turnips, parsnips, and a dwindling supply of onions. A rake of straw across their tops keeps frost from biting too deep. He lifts 2 turnips, knocking dirt away, and places them in a sack for supper stew. Next, he visits the cows. Their breath warms the byre like gentle clouds. He forks hay, last June's work, and spreads it thick. The cows eat slowly, soft eyes half closed. He rubs one along its flank. The hide is cool, muscles shifting beneath in steady rhythm. These beasts are more than food or labor. They are partners in the village's survival. Their milk thickening porridge. Their calves traded for iron and salt. Mid-morning brings the task of tool inspection. Within his shed lean Robert's implements. A moldboard plough, wooden shares stacked against a wall, iron coulter rusting along its edge. Winter moisture breeds corrosion. He seats himself on a stool, draws a flat stone from his pouch, and begins to rasp the coulter. Each stroke whispers like distant surf. Metal dust drifts onto his woolen hose. Robert's mind drifts with it, recalling past springs when this same blade parted sweet earth. Ribbons of soil curling aside like loosened ribbon. Sharpening is meditation, a promise of seasons yet to come. At midday, the sun stands weak but undiminished by cloud. Alice appears with a small trencher of bread and cheese. They eat side by side on the shed's threshold, silence companionable. Overhead, a hawk circles, then drifts away beyond hedgerow skeletons. Alice remarks that the hawk is lean this year. Robert nods. Few field mice venture above snow. Afternoon turns to indoor labor. Inside the cottage, Robert sits near the hearth, stretching a strip of leather. It will become a new girth strap for the plough harness, the old one frayed to threads. He punctures holes with an awl, then threads hemp twine through a bone needle. Each stitch pulls tight with a small creak. William brings a mug of small beer, weak yet safer than water, placing it close at hand. Flames crackle, sparks ascend the chimney like hurried fireflies. Twilight seeps around the shutters. Agnes nods into sleep upon a sheepskin, a rag doll clutched in mitten hands. Emma winds newly spun yarn into a ball, her face calm in fireglow. Alice stirs a pot of pottage, turnip, a heel of salted pork, fistful of beans. The aroma is simple and sufficient. Night settles, and Robert carries a candle to the byre one final time. He checks each knot on the stall doors, then lingers to listen for cough or strain. Only the steady chew of cud answers him. He returns, easing the cottage door closed. A soft prayer escapes his lips, half gratitude, half request. Gratitude for warmth, request for another quiet sunrise. Soon the family climbs the ladder to sleep. The hearth coals dim, pulsing in slow heartbeat. Outside, wind teases loose snow from thatch edges. It spirals downward like white moths towards slumbering earth. The village lies wrapped in darkness and dreams. And above, Orion keeps watch, his belt a silver pinch holding heaven's cloak. Thus ends January in Greenford, a month not of idleness, but of gentle maintenance, where work contracts to the size of a cottage, yet stretches across eternity. Each sharpened blade, each patch of leather, each spoon of porridge is a strand in the tapestry of survival. Tomorrow will mirror today, and that sameness is its own kind of blessing. Chapter 2, February. Mending and planning creeps in almost unseen, for winter has many masks. Some mornings dawn with diamond bright frost, others with fog thick enough to muffle even the crows. But with each passing day, twilight lingers a breath longer, and the rooks build their ragged nests a notch higher in the elms. Robert marks the subtle shifts, the way a sailor reads tides. In these hints, he hears the distant drumbeat of spring. On a mild Tuesday, the village reeve summons household heads to the margin of the open fields. Robert joins half a dozen neighbors, coat collars pulled high, to inspect the wheat strips they sowed last autumn. They walk shoulder to shoulder, boots sinking in thaw-soft mud. The grey blades of winter wheat hunker beneath rags of snow, but where the drifts have melted, tender shoots show green. Henry, the oldest cottager, kneels to tease a sprout free and examine its root, white, firm. Back at the cottage, Alice unrolls her hemp ledger, a narrow strip of linen on which she not records stores. 3 rows of knots mark sacks of peas, another records barley measures. A final row lists cheese rounds aging in the loft. Together, she and Robert run calloused fingers along the cord, counting winter's dwindling bounty. 2 more months, they agree, before fresh greens arrive. They will be frugal, but they will not starve. The children gather rushes in February. The floor mat needs replacing. The old rushes have turned dusty and brittle, giving off a stale odor. Emma and William twist new green bundles, laying them in overlapping fans across the packed earth. The cottage feels reborn, its scent now clean, grassy, alive. On market day, Robert hitches their ox, Bristle, to a sled and trundles 3 miles to the manor village. The track is slick, scattered with thawed puddles reflecting pewter skies. At the market green, he trades a small wheel of last year's cheese for a length of iron strap and a spoon of salt. A traveling tinker mends a cracked pot for Alice, while Robert studies a rack of used tools. One catches his eye, a second-hand sickle with a thin, curved blade. The edge is nicked, but the spine is sound and the handle feels right in his palm. After a quiet haggle, 2 measures of dried beans, and a promise of a day's carting come May, the sickle is his. Evening finds Robert in the glow of half-light, stone grinder clamped between knees, working the sickle's blade. Sparks hop and vanish. He breathes slow, letting each exhale carry away the day's bustle. The rhythm lulls Agnes to sleep. She leans against the settle bench, eyelids fluttering like moth wings. When the blade shines, Robert oils it with tallow and stores it high, away from curious fingers. Later that week, a thaw swells the brook behind the cottage, pushing water beyond its banks. Robert and William venture out with shovels to deepen drainage ditches carved last year. Mud sucks at their boots. Cold water gums the fingers. Yet the task is vital. Come planting, the field must drain or seeds will rot. They work in near silence, broken only by the gruff cough of a raven overhead. By dusk, the ditch is cleared, water sheet flowing into the hedgerow. They return soaked, faces numb, but spirits buoyed by the small victory. Inside, Alice prepares a rare luxury, a little pan of dried apples stewed with honey. The scent spills into every crack, mingling with wood smoke. They eat slowly, savoring each soft slice as though it were orchard sweet August imprisoned in a bowl. Robert thanks Alice with a gentle squeeze of her hand. Words seem too clumsy for gratitude so deep. Toward month's end, Brother Caleb visits again, carrying news of distant matters, a new abbot appointed, a rumor of rebellion in the north. Robert listens politely, but his mind tethers to furrows, not politics. Caleb blesses the household, sprinkles the lintel with holy water, and leaves an alms box on the table. Alice places inside a single copper farthing. Charity, even small, is insurance for the soul. The last night of February brings a full moon, bright as a polished shilling. Frost scabs the ground, and starlight sparks the thawed rills. Robert cannot sleep. He wraps a cloak and steps outside. The hamlet lies quilted in silver. He imagines the wheat sleeping beneath a thin crust, sap ticking upward in roots, readying for the surge of spring. He breathes deeply, surrendering his worries to the moonlit silence. Come morning, the calendar will turn, and with March will come the plough. Chapter 3, March, First Plough. The 1st of March dawns to a chorus of larks, their jubilant notes cascading through chill air like beads on a string. Robert rises before the household stirs, eagerness pricking his heels. Today, if the ground proves soft enough, he will cut the inaugural furrow of the new agricultural year. In the dim shed, Robert collects the elements of the plough team. Bristle, the ox, stands patiently as Robert brushes winter dust from his flanks. A smear of tallow glosses the beast's yoke pads, easing pressure points. Robert fits the newly mended girth strap beneath Bristle's belly and tugs each buckle until snug. He then lifts the sharpened coulter, its edge mirror bright from countless February mornings, and bolts it to the Plough's forward upright. Alice appears bearing a cloth bundle of barley bread and a wooden flask of small beer. She smiles, a quiet benediction, and helps guide the animal out of the byre. Emma and William hover in the doorway, excitement writ on wide faces. First Plough is a milestone. Even children feel the earth's anticipation. The field lies west of the cottage, part of the common's open strips allocated to Robert's family. Frost still lingers in shaded gits, but the ridgetops show black earth glistening with thaw. Robert walks the boundary, pressing a boot heel here, there, testing. Satisfied, he positions Bristle at the headland. The plough handles rest comfortably against his hips. He inhales, grips, and speaks a soft command. The ox leans into the yoke. With a crunch, the coulter bites. The soil parts, releasing an aroma unlike any other. Damp mineral, faint root, the ghost of summers past. Clods flip aside, dark as fresh ink. Steam whisks upward, where cold air meets warm earth. Robert keeps steady pressure, guiding depth with skill inherited from generations. Each furrow is a sentence written upon the land, measured, deliberate. Step, breathe, guide. Bristle moves in calm rhythm, hooves pressing crescents into the turned loam. The sky brightens to washed blue. A breeze carries the call of distant geese. Robert's shoulders feel the weight of the plough, but the ache is welcome. It speaks of rebirth. At mid-morning, Alice arrives with the children. They carry small wicker baskets of seed grain, wheat saved from last harvest, winnowed and aired through winter. Robert halts the ox, wipes brow with sleeve, and shares bread. Crumbs fall, sparrows scuttle to claim them. While family eats, he explains the plan. Today they open 3 long strits. Tomorrow they will broadcast seed, harrow, and pray for gentle rain. Emma begs to scatter first seed. Robert nods. She steps lightly into the fresh furrow, fist of grain poised. Afternoon work is a quiet chant. Plough sings, larks respond. By dusk, 6 furrows lie immaculate, slices of dark velvet. Robert leads Bristle home, praising the faithful beast. In the byre, he rubs linseed oil into the ox's shoulders, muttering thanks in words the animal need not understand to feel. That night, muscle fatigue thrums through Robert's body like distant drumbeats. He sits by the hearth, absently turning a wooden cup, savoring honest weariness. Alice darns a sock, needle dipping like a heron's beak into water. The children doze early, cheeks flushed from cool wind and running in fields. Rain arrives 2 days later, soft as a hymn. It stipples the furrows, tamping seed into earth's embrace. Robert watches from the doorway, lips curved. This is grace, sky and soil speaking in duet. Mid-March brings the harrow, wooden frame studded with iron teeth, dragged behind Bristle to crumble clods and cloak seeds. Robert walks the side, eyes on texture, breaking lumps with boot heel. When finished, the field appears brushed, its surface gently ribbed under low sun. Village life buzzes with mirrored activity. Everywhere, plowshares flash, oxen grunt, children sow. In the evenings, men gather at the ale bench to compare progress and predict yields. No boasts here, only shared hope. Fortunes are collective, failure communal. The month ends with daylight balanced to night. On the equinox, Brother Caleb leads a brief service in the half-built chapel, blessing seeds and laborers alike. Robert's family stands together, palms upturned to receive a splash of holy water. Outside, skylarks coil above greening strits, and the first violet unfurls in the hedgerow, a small pennant of victory over frost. March bows out beneath a mild sunset, sky-streaked apricot and rose. Robert leans on the gate, listening to frogs in the brook, content. Earth stirred, seeds hidden, prayers spoken. The wheel turns. Chapter 4, April, Garden and Lambing. April steps into Greenford on slipper-soft feet, trailing blossom petals like shy confetti. The plum near Robert's door bursts into clouds of white, each flower a tiny lantern promising fruit. Bees, newly awakened, weave lazy sigils between blooms. The air smells of damp wood, young grass, and something bright, hope perhaps, rising with the sap. Robert turns attention to the cottage croft, a modest fenced garden where vegetables for immediate household use grow apart from the communal fields. He kneels to rake debris from last year's beds, withered cabbage stalks, brittle kale leaves, and folds them into the compost pit where slow alchemy turns waste to nourishment. Emma follows, dropping onion skins and eggshell shards into the heap. Steam lifts where decomposition ferments. Worms writhe, shy yet purposeful. The soil in the garden, mellowed by kitchen scraps, crumbles between Robert's fingers like cake. He sows rows of peas, pressing each seed knuckle-deep, spacing with a craftsman's eye. Beside them go lettuce and parsley. Along the fence, Alice plants beans, their vines destined to climb hazel stakes William cut yesterday. Agnes patters behind, imprinting tiny heel marks that, come May, will vanish beneath leafy abundance. Meanwhile, lambing begins in the communal flock. Greenford's sheep graze rough upland pasture, overseen by a shepherd named Eli. At dawn, his horn alerts families. A ewe is laboring. Robert and two neighbors answer, hurrying across dew-heavy fields. Mist floats knee-high, swallowing boots. They find the ewe lying on her flank, sides heaving. Eli kneels, murmuring soft nonsense, hands steady. Robert supports the animal's head, stroking coarse wool. A final groan, and the slick lamb spills onto grass. Eli clears its nose, rubs briskly with straw, and within minutes, the creature stands, trembling on matchstick legs. The ewe bleats, nudging her newborn toward first milk. Witnessing this small miracle anchors Robert's faith in cycles: seed to stalk, lamb to ewe, night to dawn. Back home, the sun climbs. Alice boils nettle tops, a spring tonic, rich in green vigor, to supplement thinning larder stores. The family drinks nettle broth from wooden cups, its taste earthy and iron-tinged. Robert knows the tonic's worth. Winters often leave bodies sluggish, blood thick. The brew clears fog from mind and limb. Mid-month, rain showers stride in, brief and boisterous. Between downpours, Robert constructs a wattle hurdle. In willow rods woven between upright stakes, forming a movable fence. With William's help, he erects the hurdle in the byre yard, partitioning space for a sow soon to farrow. They work to the metallic peal of blackbird song, rods bending with satisfying creaks. In the evenings, Robert writes, or rather scratches, in a makeshift diary. A fragment of vellum salvaged from Brother Caleb. His script is clumsy, letters uneven, but the act itself feels weighty, capturing moments like insects in amber. He notes blossom dates, lamb tallies, the pattern of rain. Perhaps someday Emma will read these lines and remember her father's calloused hand guiding her first sowing. Toward month's end, a warm wave settles. The family gathers nettle stalks for fiber, strips bark from fresh willow for basket weaving, and, on a bright Sunday, walks to the riverbank where cowslips bloom in golden constellations. They pick handfuls to dry for herbal tea. Agnes murmurs to each flower before plucking, a game taught by her mother. Thank you, little star. April closes with twilight stretching, bats flickering against saffron horizons, and the faintest hum of crickets hinting at summer. The garden rows sleep under straw mulch. Lambs wobble beside ewes, and Robert feels time's wheel press forward, steady, unstoppable, yet somehow gentle under his guiding palms. Chapter 5. May. Fields in bloom. May dawns with silver rain that dissolves the last memory of frost from the hedgerows. It is a gentle rain, soft as spun wool, and it beads on every leaf and blade before sinking into the dark root loam beneath. Robert rises to its drumming on the thatch, a steady cadence like the slow beat of a heart. The house feels lighter today. Shutters glow with a pale, pearly light, and the air tastes faintly of green things waking. He steps outside into a world washed clean. The wheat-stripped sown in March stand 10 inches high now, a fresh sea of tender spears that shift and lean to greet each breeze. Between the rows of rye, the first cornflowers have flared open, tiny bursts of blue against the rolling green. Robert crouches, brushing a calloused hand across the damp stalks. They shiver beneath his touch, alive and growing. A smile flickers over his face. The seed has taken, and the promise of bread is woven into these blades. Today is for inspecting and for marveling. He leads the children along the field's edge, pointing out the subtle shades of color that denote healthy growth. Vivid emerald where roots drink well, duller sage where drainage falters. He kneels, parting leaves to look for mildew or louse. Emma peers too, her braided hair swinging like a tassel. All sound, Robert murmurs, pleased. Inwardly he thanks the saints and the larks. On the southern boundary, the barley is shorter, but its heads already shimmer with developing awns that catch the sun like threads of copper. Wheat for bread, barley for ale, 2 pillars of survival, each requiring a different sort of stewardship. Robert plucks a single barley seedling and snaps its stem. Clear sap beads at the break, clean and sweet. Good. Farther on lie the fallow strips, left green with nitrogen-rich weeds last season. They glow with wild mustard, yellow as candle flame, and the beds hum with bees. Alice and Agnes appear here, baskets on arms. They collect tender goosegrass tips and sorrel leaves for supper pottage. Agnes picks with solemn care, whispering her thanks to each plant. This is Alice's lesson, to accept but also to honor. Mid-morning burns the mist away, revealing a sky cut from blue glass. Robert unshoulders his mattock. May is the weed month. Bindweed, charlock, poppy seedlings, and the tough, wiry thistles that slip into the tilled rows. If left, they will tangle harvest, dull blades, steal moisture. So he moves steadily down each furrow, root by root, casting intruders onto a gathering pile. The children work too. William swings a light hoe, proud of every thistle toppled. Emma moves slower, choosing to pull each weed by hand, ensuring the wheat stalks bend but do not break. They speak little. There is harmony in shared labor, and the world is already loud with skylarks. When the sun crowns moon, Alice calls them to the shade of the field maple that guards a corner of their strips. She has laid a cloth upon the grass. On it sit wedges of coarse bread smeared with soft curd cheese, radish slices fanned like little wheels, and a flask of small beer cooled in the brook. They eat, listening to the drone of bees thickening overhead. Robert closes his eyes, letting warmth seep into muscles still braided with winter rigidity. The spring earth smells of possibility, of yeast and ale yet to rise, of straw yet to be cut, of safe nights by a brimming granary. Lunch done, the family resumes the weed patrol. Robert carries his bundle of culled pests to the compost trench at field's edge. burying them deep. Weeds, too, will become nutrition in time. May teaches that all things circle back. He pauses near the ditch they deepened in February. Clear water slides through it, bright as a mirror. Frogs lurk under the cresses, throats pulsing. Their low croaks join the meadow's chorus, a slow percussion beneath birdsong. That evening, after tools are stowed and animals tended, Robert takes a slow walk to the ridge above Greenfoot. From here, the valley glows. Fields in graded hues of spring, cottages smoking supper wood, the brook looping like hammered silver beneath the lowering sun. He thinks of last winter's long nights, of the cautious hope carried in each grain he sowed, and feels the wheel of time turning as surely as Millicent the village weaver turns her spinning wheel. He breathes deep, counts blessings in silence, and starts down toward home, where the children's laughter is already spilling through the half-open door. May slides toward dusk. Midges swirl gold in slanted light. Swallows swoop low across the pond. Tomorrow Robert will weed again, and the day after, and the day after. The work is never finished, neither is the wonder. Chapter 6, June. Haymaking. June arrives on the back of a scent. Cut grass warmed by sun, sweet and heavy enough to fill every fold of cloth. Robert cannot remember the first dawn without dew this year, yet suddenly hay weather is upon them. The meadow behind the byre, long reserved for scythe and rake, stands waist-high, rippling like a green lake beneath a golden breeze. Timothy grassheads nod, flecked with pollen. Red clover speckles purple along the lower hummocks. The time for hay is brief, a week of fair skies, if fortune holds, and every villager feels the urgency tremble under their ribs. Before sunrise, Robert wets a whetstone at the rain barrel. He draws it along the scythe blade, slow, even strokes that leave a whispering burr of steel. Each pass brightens the edge to a line of moonlight. He tests it with thumb tip, feels the ghost of a cut before blood appears, ready. In the meadow's hush, he takes his stance, left foot forward, knees flexed, torso poised. He lifts the scythe and lets the blade fall in a wide, low arc. The grass parts with a sigh, folding onto itself in graceful ribbons. Step, swing, breathe. Step, swing, breathe. A rhythm older than parchment pulses through every muscle. Before long, swaths of pale stalks lie in neat rows, the damp scent of chlorophyll spilling upward like opened wine. Emma and William trail after, turning the cut grass with flat wooden rakes. Their task is to fluff and spread, so sun and breeze may kiss every strand. Alice follows, gathering drooping clover heads for dye. Come autumn, their pinks will stain wool a gentle rose. Agnes skips between rows, chasing grasshoppers, until Alice captures her in a lithesome hug and sets her beside the rake. Even small hands can scatter hay. Through morning, the meadow transforms. From tall living green to orderly mats of curing fodder, the air hums with insects. At midday, they break under the shade of an ash. Bread crusts soaked in small beer, onion, and a wedge of last year's hard cheese sustain them. Sweat cools on skin, leaving a salty crust. Robert tilts his head back against bark, eyes half closed, and listens. The rustle of hay as it settles, the high ceaseless murmur of bees, the distant ringing of another scythe in a neighbor's field. Summer is not loud, it is full. The afternoon job is turning again. Every row lifted, loosened, fluffed. By evening, the moisture has dropped. Stalks snap instead of bend, a timber dry sound that tells the ear hay is near ready. Robert gathers small handfuls, twists them into cords, and knots them. If they hold shape without oozing sap, tomorrow will be cart day. Night falls warm. Frogs sing riotously in the brook, and the hayfield glows silver under a waxing moon. Robert lies awake, thinking of weather. If rain arrives before the hay is stacked, rot will steal winter fodder, and animals will suffer. He prays a simple prayer: one more day of sun. Dawn keeps faith. Shadows retreat quickly as Robert rouses the household. Scythes give way to pitchforks and wooden hay rakes, with tines spaced by fingers' width. The family works in concert, gathering hay into long. By dusk of the third day, the meadow lies shorn and tidy. Insects still sing, but their chorus echoes. The lush hiding places are gone. Swallows dip low, scooping what they can before night. Robert stands at the field's edge, legs trembling from labor, back warm despite the cooling air. He feels satisfaction deep and resonant. Hay means milk through winter, means calves spared hunger, means the wheel has one more sturdy spoke. That night, thunderheads bruise the horizon. Rain hammers after midnight, drumming on roofs and splashing in barrels. But Robert sleeps soundly. The hay is safe beneath its ridgepole, stacked high, dry and sweet. Let the sty spend its fury. Greenford is ready. When morning arrives clear, the family walks the barn aisle, inhaling. The hay's perfume is rich, sunshine compressed into breath. Agnes giggles, diving into a loose pile until only her small feet remain visible. Robert pulls her free, tickling until she squeals. June is labor, but it is laughter too, and tenderness that tastes of cut grass. Outside, the wheat heads grow heavy with juice. Barley ripens to green gold. Flax flowers glow like sky captured in petals. Haymaking slides into memory, yet its promise echoes in every lowing cow and chewing calf. We have fed tomorrow. Chapter 7, July. Weeding and Vigil. July drapes the valley in a heat haze that quivers above stone walls and blurs the far ridge into wavering lines. The sun rises early, fierce and white, and lingers long past the hour when the hearth would usually be raked down for night. Shadows are scarce. Robert ties a damp linen kerchief around his neck to catch sweat before it blinds him. Now begins the vigilance. Weeds, insects, storms. Anyone may upend a harvest balanced on tender stalks. The wheat stands thigh-high, its once green blades turning the pale hue of young straw. Ears are filling, each grain a pocket of milky sweetness that will, with luck, harden into flour-rich kernels. But between the rows sprout tares, darnel, wild oats, stem thistle, and worst of all, creeping couch grass, whose white runners steal water and whisper disease. Robert shoulders a long-handled hook. He moves row by row, bending to slice weeds at root neck. The sun drums on his back, sweat pouring, shirt sticking like plaster. Each weed falls with a small snap, joining a pile he will later collect and burn. Emma works ahead, her lighter frame weaving through stalks without bending them. William follows, lifting fallen weeds onto a wicker hod. Alice stays nearer the cottage garden. But at midday, she arrives with barley cakes laced with fennel and a flask of water flavored with mint. Heat steals appetite, mint brings it back. After the meager meal, Robert inspects for beetle and blight. He strips husks to look for blackened tips, sign of ergot, and peers at leaves for orange pustules of rust. It is slow work, fingers gentle, eyes narrowed. He plucks half a dozen suspect stalks and lays them aside. Better a loss of a handful than the sickness of a granary. He thinks of stories Brother Caleb told, of villages where tainted rye brought nightmares and fits. He will not risk it. Toward evening, a shadow crosses. Robert glances up to see cloud banks mounting, their bellies the color of bruised plum. Thunder in July can flatten a crop overnight. Hail shards will shred leaves, drown kernels, crush hopes. Anxiety flares but finds no time to flower. Labor must quicken. He and Alice loop ropes around the wheat at strip edges, pulling the stand into tighter ranks against wind. They drive ash stakes, lash cross pieces, hasty buttressing. The children drag hurdles from the byre and lean them as shields against the prevailing gust. As dusk bleeds in, the storm breaks eastward first, sheets of rain visible like grey curtains. Robert urges family indoors, but he remains under the maple, watching. Lightning veins the sky, thunder claps echo across hills. Yet the worst wind skirts Greenford, racing north, pounding some distant parish. Only steady rain reaches them, abundant but not brutal. Robert thanks whatever quiet guardian hovers over this valley. Rain patters through the night. By dawn it softens to drizzle, then mist. Robert walks the fields barefoot, unwilling to crush damp soil with heavy boots. Wheat bows, but is not broken. Leaves gleam polished. He breathes the petrichor scent until lungs strain, then releases it in a sigh mixed with relief and gratitude. Mid-July finds them repeating the vigil. Weed, inspect, stake, pray. The sun returns, maturing grain. A cuckoo calls, unseen. At twilight, bats flicker between cottages. Agnes counts them with wide eyes until numbers exceed her grasp. Robert sharpens sickles in secret, knowing the children's excitement would bubble over if they guessed harvest preparations have begun. The final days of July settle into a hush before climax. Wheat heads lean heavy, whispering among themselves in dry voices. Small breezes rattle awns like distant applause. Alice pulls Robert aside one evening, palm on her slight belly. She suspects another child quickening. Joy sprouts quietly between them, a delicate green shoot they share in soft smiles and secret touches as they work. Life begets life. The wheel shows no rust. Chapter 8. August. Harvest Eve. August greets Greenford with a golden roar. Dawn light pours thick as honey across ridge and roof, and the wheat ripples like a sea of hammered brass. Robert wakes to that glow, heart thudding with mingled awe and apprehension. Harvest is both feast and trial. If weather holds, granaries will brim. If storms strike, months of labor may rot in the furrow. Every sunrise is a wager. Tradition demands a blessing before the first cut. On Lammas morning, Loafmas, the 1st of August, Brother Caleb gathers the villagers at the chapel frame where rough timber walls now bear a thatched roof. He lifts a sheaf of the earliest ripened wheat, bound with red twine, and intones a prayer older than Norman rule, asking that bread never fail any hearth, that sickle bite true, that backs and hearts be strong. Robert bows his head, fingers brushing Alice's. Emma stands wreathed in sunlight through a gap in the wall, her face solemn as an acolyte. After service, families hurry to their strips. Robert carries 3 sickles, the new one from February, the older but trusty partner, and a smaller blade sized for Emma's hands. The children feel excitement crackle like kindling. Agnes claps when Robert shows her the first ear he will present to her for luck. They start at field's eastern margin, where grain ripened fastest. Robert cups a handful of stalks, leans them away, and draws the sickle in a crisp sweep. Stems sever with a low hiss. He lays the bundle beside his feet, gathers the next handful, repeats. Emma shadows him, binding cut sheaves with wisps of twisted straw. Behind them, William and Alice stack sheaves into stooks, small teepees that lift grain off soil, so sun and wind may dry kernels. Agnes gathers stray heads in her apron, a scavenger of gold crumbs. Heat climbs. Sweat salt stings eyes. Arms burn. Yet spirits soar. The field shrinks visibly, swath by swath, revealing dark loam dotted with fallen grains that pigeons flutter down to seize. Laughter bubbles despite fatigue each time Emma's binding slips and a sheaf explodes into a fragrant cascade over her head. At noon, they retreat to shade for barley bread and cool whey. Robert examines the sky, clear, high, a mercy. He gauges progress, 1/4 stripped. Good, but the pace must quicken. 3 more days, and forecast threatens rain. Afternoon sees sickles flashing faster, rhythm settling into bodies until motion becomes muscle memory. Robert's back protests, but he hums a low tune to drown the ache. Alice teaches Emma a harvest chant. Cut and bind, grain and twine, store the sun for wintertime. Their voices thread between rustling stalks, weaving a lullaby for the labor. Even William hums, though he pretends indifference. As shadows stretch, they set the final stooks of the day, neat ranks of miniature huts. Overhead, swifts wheel, screeching their fierce joy. The family trudges home, clothes prickly with chaff, hair dusted pale. Supper is barely more than broth and cheese, for appetite is dulled by exhaustion. Yet each mouthful tastes blessed. Night air cools blistered hands. Robert sharpens blades by moonlight, each rasp sparking fireflies. He listens to the barn settling, the gentle shifting of cows on straw, and beyond, the hush of the field waiting for morning. The second day repeats the first, but faster, urgency cracking like a hidden whip. Neighboring strips fall too. Everywhere sickles whisper and children's voices rise. Greenford rings with harvest, every sense steeped in grain. The scent, nutty and warm. The taste, just a kernel chewed sweet into milk. The feel, raspy stalks brushing skin. The sound, shush, shush. The sight, sunlight trapped in straw. By sunset, the wheat is down, stooked and drying. Robert's heart swells at the sight. Rows upon rows of golden tents, catching dusk's pink light. One more day, and they will cart it home. August 3rd brings clouds, but no rain. Robert and William hitch Bristle to the wide bed wagon. They load sheaves, heavy, scratchy bundles stacked shoulder high. The wagon creaks under weight. The ox heaves, wheels bite dust. At the barn, Alice and Emma lay sheaves on the loft floor, spreading them in an airy layer to finish drying. Trip follows trip. Arms burn, shirts cling. By nightfall, the loft bulges. Robert's smile lines deepen. When the last wagon is unloaded, Robert lifts the maiden sheaf kept aside from day one. He carries it reverently into the cottage and places it near the hearth. It is the Kern baby, a pledge to the spirits of the field that the household remembers the gift of grain. Agnes strokes the yellow heads like doll hair. Alice ties a ribbon around the stalks. They will keep it through winter, then plough its seeds back into earth in spring, a circle unbroken. That night, thunder mutters on distant hills, but Greenset's wheat lies safe beneath a sturdy roof. Robert sleeps dreamless, ears still ringing with the hush-hush of sickles slicing time. Chapter 9, September. The Great Harvest. September opens with a low haze muffling birdsong. The barley, oats, and rye stand ready, each demanding swift attention. Where August was a contest against sun and schedule, September is a marathon of endurance. Grains be cut, carted, threshed, winnowed, and stored before autumn rains settle in earnest. Robert rises before first light, lighting a sliver of pine to guide hands to clothes. In the barn, he and William set flails upright. each consisting of a stout handle and a shorter, free-swung bat connected by leather thong. The flails will not swing in earnest for another week. First, they move to the rye field. Rye grows taller than wheat, stalks coarse, heads bearded. Robert cuts with an old sickle whose broader curve suits thick stems. Each sweep sends a shiver down his spine. Rye resists, fighting the blade. William gathers, tying heavier sheaves, requiring doubled twine. Emma and Alice stook. Sweat returns despite cooler air. Rye dust clings, itching skin through linen. Barley follows, lower, denser, heads nodding under awns. The new sickle slides cleanly here, its fine edge slicing stalks with little force. Robert savors the ease, grateful for February's trade. Barley's scent differs, sweet, almost malty, hinting at the ale it will become. By midday, Agnes runs sheaves to wagon with enthusiastic, if inefficient energy. Her small arms buoy spirits. One evening, Robert pauses to watch a hedgehog shuffle between stooks, nose twitching. He gestures William close. They crouch, silent. The hedgehog stops, sniffs a straw, then rolls into a prickled ball, defense against imagined giants. William whispers wonder. Robert smiles, touches son's shoulder. Harvest gives lessons in gentleness as well as toil. By mid-September, barns brin. Now comes threshing, the beating of grain from husk. They spread a tarp on the barn floor, lay down a ring of sheaves, and take flails in hand. Swing, lift, back. The bats strike stalks with hollow thuds, kernels rattling free like pebbles. Dust clouds rise, shafts of sunlight catch drifting chaff. Rhythm emerges. Robert and Alice alternate swings to avoid collision, breathing in sync. Children rake loose straw aside, revealing seeds piled like tiny coins. After threshing comes winnowing. On a breezy afternoon, they carry baskets of grain and chaff outside. Robert lifts a basket overhead and lets contents fall in a steady shower. The breeze snatches chaff, leaving heavier grain to cascade into a shallow trough. Emma follows, smaller arms wobbling but determined. The air fills with husk flakes swirling like brown snow. Sun lowers, gilding everything in amber. They bag the clean grain in linen sacks, stitch mouths closed, and stack them atop wooden pallets in the granary. Robert chalks tally marks on the doorframe. Sacks of wheat, rye, barley, oats. The numbers rise past last year's count. He cannot help running fingertips along each mark, feeling abundance like a prayer answered. September's final task is gleaning. Village widows and children comb stubble for kernels missed in the cut, an age-old rite. Robert's family joins, not for hunger, but for community. They laugh, racing to see who can fill a small sack first. Agnes squeals whenever she finds a full ear, brandishing it like treasure. Robert watches, contentment swelling until it aches. On Michaelmas Eve, Brother Caleb blesses the harvest with smoke from juniper and psalmic chant. The village gathers in the new chapel, now whitewashed and hung with sheaves plaited into crosses. Caleb's voice echoes, low and soothing, as he speaks of barns and souls alike needing care. Robert stands among neighbors, heart as full as his granary. That night, the sky chills clear, stars spangle black velvet. Orion returns. Robert steps outside, smelling autumn edging into the air, damp leaves, distant fires. The great harvest is in. Winter may come. Greenford is ready. Chapter 10, October. Thresh and Winnow. October sighs its way into Greenford on a swirl of russet leaves that skitter across the yard like shy mice. At first light, Robert wakes to the scent of damp earth, mixed with the faint tang of wood smoke drifting from neighboring chimneys. Outside, the air has sharpened to the cool edge of a knife. Yet it is not quite winter's blade, more an autumn nib that writes crisp patterns of breath before fading. The barns bulge with bundled grain, but loose straw still crowds every corner, concealing treasure in its golden folds. Robert knows the real harvest is only half finished. Kernels must be coaxed from husks, sifted from chaff, and tucked safely away before deep frost locks the land. So the family turns from field to threshing floor, exchanging sun-hatched sweat for labor beneath a timbered roof. The threshing floor is a rectangle of hard-packed clay, polished by generations of flail and foot. Robert sweeps it clean, each broom stroke revealing a surface that gleams like a worn leather. Through the open barn doors, morning light slants in thick beams, stippled with suspended dust. Motes hang, drifting gently, sparkling whenever someone passes. An old cartwheel, half buried in shadow, leans against the wall like a sleeping sentinel. He and William fetch the flails, prepared in September. Robert tests the leather thongs, tugging until they creak but do not let go. The striking bats, fashioned from well-seasoned ash, feel balanced, neither too heavy to lift over and over, nor so light they bounce off the sheaves without power. Emma and Alice, meanwhile, carry armfuls of barley and rye onto the floor, arranging them in a circular wreath, grain heads facing inward, straw tails pointing out. When the ring is complete, it looks like a humble crown laid at the feet of the season. Robert stands at the circle's rim and touches William's shoulder. They lift their flails to shoulder height, swing in quiet unison, and let the bats fall. A hollow thrumph echoes, soft but certain, followed by the more delicate patter of kernels striking clay. Dust puffs upward, then lofts sideways, caught by the draft that slips between wall boards. Alice and Emma step forward with short-handled forks, easing away straw as each segment is beaten, then piling it neatly at the side for later use as bedding. The rhythm is easy to keep, but deadly to strain. Lift, breathe, swing, breathe. Robert counts heartbeats under his breath, allowing the flail to do the work rather than muscular force. William mimics him, arms still gangly, but gaining confidence. The barn fills with a measured music, wood on straw, kernels dropping, the faint exhale of the wind outside mixing with each impact. Agnes watches from a safe perch on an upturned keg, legs dangling, clapping whenever a cloud of chaff rises particularly high. After an hour, Robert calls a pause. They open the great doors wide and drag the loosened straw outside, shaking it to free any hidden grain. Mid-morning, they resume with oats, lighter stalks that yield beneath the flail with a papery crackle. Oat chaff floats more easily, forming delicate drifts along the floor like golden snowbanks. Emma giggles each time her sweeping broom draws patterns in the pale fluff. Circles, spirals, the letter E traced backward before she smooths it flat again. When the sun reaches its zenith, Alice spreads a cloth beside the granary wall and unpacks a simple meal. Wedges of rye hazel loaf, soft cheese newly pressed from yesterday's milk, and thin slices of salted mutton left over from Michaelmas. They sit in a loose circle, backs against sun-warmed planks, eating slowly. Above them, a cloud passes, and for a moment, shadows ripple over the barn roof like waves across a quiet pond. No one speaks much. Silence during harvest tasks is not emptiness. It is the deep hum of shared purpose, a comfort greater than chatter. After the meal, Robert carries 2 large wicker fans from their hook. These are winnowing baskets, wide and shallow, with rims strengthened by green willow. Outside in the yard, a steady breeze drifts from the west, just strong enough to lift husk, but not bold enough to snatch grain. Perfect. They heap a load of threshed mixture into the first basket. Robert lifts it to shoulder height, gives a gentle forward toss, and the contents rise in a glittering arc. Even before the cascade falls back, the wind catches chaff and carries it sideways, leaving heavier grain to rain into a wooden trough below. Each toss spills a music of rattling kernels, soft and satisfying, like muted sleigh bells. Alice takes the second basket and follows suit. Her movements slower, but no less precise. William and Emma scoop newly flailed grain into waiting baskets, forming a small chain of motion that soon becomes as soothing as a lullaby. Time flows unnoticed until long shadows slip between the barn posts. Robert adds a final toss, and the breeze, tired now, carries the last veil of chaff into the hedge where sparrows will line their winter nests. They cover the trough with a woven lid against night creatures and gather tools. Inside the cottage, the evening routine feels gentler for having spent the day in rhythmic exertion. Robert's arms ache with pleasant heaviness. Alice ladles parsnip and barley soup into wooden bowls. Its steam fogs the air, mingling with the sweet smoke scent of a new pine log catching flame. Agnes leans her head against Robert's shoulder midway through supper, and he strokes her hair, fine as the chaff that earlier rose around them. When the children climb to the loft, Robert lingers at the hearth, listening to sparks pop, thinking how each kernel, now resting in the granary, is a spark of its own. A seed of certainty against the coming cold. The next days repeat with small variations. Different grains, trade of flails for short sticks to lash oats from finer panicles, alternation of winnowing times to match the wind. Sunlit hours shorten noticeably. Dawn blushes later. Dusk steals in too soon. Yet the work fits the light. By mid-October, the granary is stocked with linen sacks stacked in tight ranks, each labeled by a bit of charcoal on scragwood. W for wheat, B for barley, R for rye, O for oats. Robert adds final marks to the tally board. More than last year, better than the year before. He stands a moment, feeling the weight of plenty settle over his shoulders like a warm mantle. Evenings grow cooler still. Mare's tail clouds streak crimson across the horizon, promising high winds. Geese thread the sky in steady chevrons, cooling their own measured choruses. Robert lights a candle and inspects tools for the coming tasks: meat curing, lard rendering, tallow dipping. But first, thanks. On the last Sunday of October, at Brother Caleb's gentle urging, the village shares a harvest evensong by torchlight, as psalms drift upward through the open chapel eaves. Robert closes his eyes. In that quiet, he hears the echo of flails on straw, the hush of wind dividing grain from husk, the quiet, stubborn heartbeat of the earth. He feels small and safe and grateful. Chapter 11, November. Preserving in pigs. With November's arrival, the valley exhales a long, cool breath, and morning fog settles like wool over hedges, hemming in sound and distance. Robert wakes to a world blurred soft around the edges, a watercolor of browns and grays, brightened only by the last stubborn leaves clinging to oak and beech. Winter stands just beyond the horizon, gathering its white skirts, and Gleanford hurries to lay provisions deep and sure. The first Monday of the month is reserved for the annual pig killing, a solemn, necessary rite that mingles gravity with muted celebration. Robert, like most smallholders, keeps a single hog fattened since spring on household scraps and summer windfall apples. Its sturdy bulk of meat and lard represents warmth, light, and nourishment for months when gardens sleep. The animal lives its last morning in calm familiarity, rooting the damp earth. Snufflings are acorns beneath the yew. Robert prepares with quiet efficiency. He sets a wooden trough nearby, fills kettles with well water to heat for scalding, tests the edge of his long knife, honed the previous night until it could shave a hair. Alice draws a little circle of chalk on the cottage threshold, an old charm for blessing and gratitude, and whispers a prayer for clean hands and steady hearts. Emma and William gather fresh straw for bedding the carcass during butchering. Agnes is sent to spin with grandmother Ellen in another cottage, spared the sight. When the hour comes, Robert leads the pig to a sunny patch behind the barn, murmuring comfort. With practiced speed, he ends its life, swift, clean, minimizing fear. The village butcher, Master Harold, assists, moving in a choreography refined by seasons. Blood is caught in a basin, immediately stirred to keep it from clotting. Later, Alice will mix it with barley and herbs, spooning the mixture into cleaned intestines to make rich black pudding. Steam rises as boiling water sluices over the carcass, loosening bristles that Robert scrapes away with a curved iron bell. The skin beneath gleams pale rose gold, still warm to the touch. While the meat cools, Master Harold shows William how to split the animal along its spine, revealing ribs that shine like rows of ivory keys on some silent organ. Robert lifts each half onto a stout beam fixed between barn posts, where cool air will ease the flesh into suitable firmness for cutting. By late afternoon, the sun sits low, a tarnished coin slipping behind bare elms. Butchering begins. Robert separates hams, shoulders, belly slabs. Alice gathers leaf lard, creamy and pliant, destined for pastry and candle. Smaller trimmings drop into a copper cauldron to render into dripping. The work is methodical, almost meditative. For each joint removed, Robert murmurs to Emma the name: Flitch, Chine, Jowl, passing on vocabulary thick with lineage. Pieces meant for salting are laid in a broad wooden trough. Robert rubs each surface with coarse bay-flavored salt, pressing crystals into every crevice. Salt draws moisture, wards rot, turns fresh meat into long-keeping treasure. Once packed, the cuts will rest under a weighted plank for weeks, brine collecting in the trough's bottom. Smaller lengths of belly destined for bacon hang from oak hooks high in the rafters. Robert will smoke these next week with slow applewood fires that breathe sweet scent into the village air. Nothing is wasted. Feet simmer into gelatin-rich stock. Ears and snout become stew. Bones once stripped will flavor pea pottage through Lent. Even the bladder is cleaned, inflated, tied, and left to dry. Come Christmas, the children will bat it along the frozen lane like a feather-light ball, laughter puffing white from their mouths. Night falls, and the barn lanterns glow amber upon walls darkened by steam. Alice ladles fresh broth into wooden cups. They drink standing, too tired to sit, savoring warmth that slips to toes and fingertips. A hint of sage drifts up, reminding Robert of midsummer's green fields now sleeping beneath Earth's brown quilt. The next days revolve around preserving. Robert and Emma tend the salting trough, turning each ham so brine reaches uniformly. Alice dices back fat into tiny cubes to render in a low kettle over the hearth. The bubbles rise languidly, surface shimmering silvery across yellow liquid. She skims cracklings, grebenese, sets them to drain, sprinkles with a little salt, and later offers a bowl to the children as a crispy evening treat. Their delighted crunch echoes faintly off cottage beams. William assists Robert with candle making, melting rendered tallow, dipping repeatedly over cotton wicks hung from a hazel rod. Each pass adds a translucent skin that hardens to milky white. Dozens hang along the settle's back to cool, filling the room with a mellow, faintly sweet aroma. In the months ahead, these candles will chase gloom from winter corners, their light a modest, luxurious thread between hours of darkness. Outside, hedgerows offer late gifts. Alice leads the children to gather rose hips, bright as embers, their flesh thick with tart sweetness. and healing cure for winter coughs. Blackthorn glints with sloe berries, skins dusky blue. They pinch them from thorny branches, layering them in earthen crocks with honey and a dash of cider spirit, a cordial for cold nights. Robert, returning from turning bacon, watches them across the field, Alice's kerchief bright against grey sky. Children's voices carrying soft through still air, and feels the tug of contentment. Mid-month comes Martinmas, Feast of Saint Martin. It is the traditional end of field labours and settling of rents, but also a small respite before Advent hush. Greensland marks it with simple goodwill. Communal broth simmered in the manor yard, fresh bread baked in the shared oven, a loop of slow dance around a fiddler, whose strings sound slightly sharp in the chilly air. Robert shares a mug of thin ale with neighbour Henry, discussing weather signs. The thickness of goose down, the tint of sunset, the early gathering of rooks. They agree frost may bite soon, but barns are full, and salt shines white as new snow around each ham. Good omens both. Toward month's end, the temperature drops sharply. Moonlit nights glitter with hoarfrost that etches every stem and latch in sugar crystal lace. In the early grey hours, Robert checks the byre. Cow's breath ghosts upward, mingling into invisible columns. He throws fresh straw, its scent honeyed and summery, despite the cold. Inside the cottage, he banks the fire high, sets an iron pot of pig's foot stock close to simmer. The windows bloom with fern-like frost patterns. Agnes traces with a cautious fingertip, giggling when her warmth leaves clear trails. November draws to a close in quiet industry. Ham brine thickens, candles harden, lard cools in glazed jars. Robert squeaks open the granary door nightly, just to inhale the mingled aromas. Grain, salt, faint smoke, like a choir promising that hunger will have no place this winter. When he climbs the loft ladder and lies beside Alice, her belly now swelling softly with new life, he closes his eyes, listening to the soft wind across the roof. Its pitch has changed, winter's music beginning. He murmurs thankfulness into the darkness, and the cottage seems to breathe back a gentle amen in the rustle of rush mat and the settling of beams. Chapter 12, December. Feast and Reflection. December slips into the village beneath a hush of falling snow, the first proper snowfall of the season. At dawn, Robert pushes open the cottage door to find the yard transformed, every familiar line softened into gentle curves beneath a white, unbroken quilt. Footprints of a night-roaming fox cross the threshold path, then vanish behind the byre. Icicles hang from the eaves like rows of crystal fangs. Catching sunrise in shards of pink and gold, the world feels paused, yet life within the cottage quickens to its warmest cadence. Advent candles stand ready on the mantel. 4 tapers Robert and William dipped, now trimmed and waiting. On the first Sunday, Alice lights the smallest, its flame steady. They gather round, and Brother Caleb's simple Latin blessing echoes softly in memory. Though he cannot visit until Christmas Eve, Emma reads a psalm aloud, her voice almost grown. Each day is short. Robert tends chores swiftly before darkness returns, chopping yew and ash for fuel, checking roof thatch for wind damage, ensuring salted meat stays cool but unfrozen in the larder corner. Inside, tasks shift to crafts suited for lamplight. Alice cards wool cut from village sheep in April, spins it upon her wheel, its soft whir a lullaby underlying winter evenings. Emma learns to knit on slender bone needles, her scarf rows growing in slow, careful stripes the color of oatmeal and moss. Agnes devotes entire hours to the kern baby sheaf saved from harvest. Alice has wrapped the top with scrap linen to form a head, tied bright ribbon around its waist, transforming it into a straw maiden. Agnes dresses her with evergreen sprigs and tiny hawthorn berries threaded on thread. The child sings lullabies, assuring the grain spirit within that spring will surely come again. Robert listens from the settle bench, sharpening the old carving knife, and smiles at such devotion. Mid-month, the sky clears, revealing nights of diamond stars. Frost silvers every surface. Even the brook slows, its edges shelled in ice, so thin it chimes when prodded. Robert slices turnip lanterns to guide late-returning villagers along the lane. Their yellow glow pools on snow, soft and muted like candlelight beneath water. Preparation for Christmas begins with house baking. Alice revives her sourdough leaven, feeding it warm water and a handful of rye. The aroma of fermenting grain seeps through the cottage, a heady, comforting scent that merges with fireplace oak. Robert builds the bakehouse oven fire at dawn. Stones heat slowly. By midday, Alice slides loaves into its cavernous mouth, round brown crowns dotted with crushed caraway and a drizzle of pig fat for shine. While bread bakes, Robert helps William finish a rough-hewn cradle, a gift for the baby expected in late spring. They plane oak boards salvaged from a fallen gatepost, fit them with pegged joints, and sand edges until smooth enough for a newborn's cheek. Emma carves a tiny bird upon the headboard, a lark, wings just rising. When complete, they rub the wood with warm lard, scented faintly of rosemary. The cradle glows honey-deep in hearthlight. On the eve of St. Thomas, December 21st, tradition grants a brief reversal. The children may ask a boon of their elders. Agnes demands a story and an extra spoon of apple conserve. Robert obliges both. He tells of a midsummer years ago when, as a boy, he rescued a hedgehog from a barley stook and carried it in his tap to the hedge. His tale meanders gently, describing barley's sway, the hedgehog's ticklish feet, the hush of twilight insects. By the end, Agnes's conserve sits forgotten, eyes heavy. Robert carries her to bed, whispering that hedgehogs surely dream of berry thickets even beneath winter snow. Christmas Eve dawns clear and bitter. The church bell rings thrice to summon midnight mass later, its notes muffled by thick air. Robert spends the morning splitting billets for the Yule log, a round of oak nearly as thick as his waist. When dusk purples the sky, he lugs it to the hearth, sets it upon iron dogs, and coaxes flames until they lick the bark, crackling bright sparks that swirl up the chimney. A Yule log must burn through the 12 nights. Robert chooses dense hardwood, so embers will smolder long and faithful. Brother Caleb arrives just before dark, cloak rimmed with frost, cheeks glowing red. He shares a flask of red wine left from the manor's tithe. Alice adds the wine to a kettle with honey, clove, and bittersweet sloes harvested in November. The resulting mulled brew perfumes the room. A single cup warms Caleb enough to recite a quiet blessing over the unborn child, over the new cradle, and over the Yule log whose sparks prick heaven's dark cloak. Midnight mass fills the chapel with wavering candlelight and the murmur of cold-pinked voices. Robert kneels, head bowed, not so much praying as listening, to the timber beams contracting in the chill, to the wind under roof thatch, to the distant low of cattle. He feels the year drawing a deep breath, ready to exhale into the next. Christmas Day itself is simple yet generous. Alice stews one salted ham, soaked overnight to temper its brine, then bastes it with honey saved since the blooming of May clover. A pudding of barley, lard, and dried rose hips simmers until plump, sweetened with a last knob of foreign sugar purchased penny dear at market. Robert invites old Henry, widowed, to share the table. They eat slowly, savoring each bite as though tasting the seasons themselves. Spring's blossom honey, summer's grain, autumn's fruit, winter's salt and smoke. Laughter is quiet, rising between spoonfuls, and lights the cottage brighter than candles. 12 nights that follow drift by in gentle ceremony. They scatter grain at the threshold for hungry birds, spill ale upon the hearth as libation to unseen guardians, trade small gifts, Emma's knitted scarf, William's carved whistle, Robert's lard-polished chestnut beads for Alice's hair. Outside, snow deepens. Inside, firelight and shared stories keep cold at respectful remove. Thus December ages towards year's end. On the morning of the 31st, Robert carries a shovel. Clearing the path to the granary, he steps inside, breath curling, and counts sacks under lantern glow. Nothing has been taken by rat or damp. He binds the ledger cord one turn tighter, satisfied. At twilight, he stands before the cottage, frost crunching beneath boots, and watches the western sky fade through lavender into night. He feels time coil like a sleeping cat, tail around nose, ready to unfurl once more. Chapter 13. The Turning Wheel. A full year has turned since we first stepped through Greenford's moonlit lanes, and the valley rests under another quiet January sky. From that first frost-silvered dawn to this snow-soft morning, the life of Robert's family has followed a rhythm gentle as a cradle rock, sure as the pull of the moon across hidden tides of seed and sap. Imagine standing again beside the low wooden cross at the hamlet's center. The night is calm, snow muffles the world, yet the memory of each season whispers from every corner like the lingering perfume of a candle long extinguished. There, beneath the yew, one can almost see March's first furrow curling dark and fragrant. Along the hedgerow, the pale ghosts of April lambs still wobble toward milk-warm shelter. In the hush above the byre floats a scent of June's hay, sweet and sunbound, and across the stubbled fields lingers an echo of August sickles whispering grain to earth. Time, like the wheel of an ox cart, leaves impressions that fade yet never fully disappear. The sharpened coulter now hangs at rest, edge dulled by months of stoic service, awaiting the next sharpening stone. The barn, heavy with winter quiet, still exudes faint fragrances of straw and smoked bacon, and the mellow promise of grain. The cradle near the hearth rocks slightly whenever a draft passes, ready to cradle new life come spring. Even the kern baby, straw maiden now slightly dandled and leaning, stands watch by the lintel, guardian of seed and story. Robert's cottage breathes a slow contentment. Inside, the Yule embers glow soft amber, coaxed each evening so warmth never truly dies. Alice, belly round, sits carding wool while Emma stitches the final row of her moss-colored scarf. William whittles a small toy ox from elderwood, curls of pale grain falling to the rush mat. Agnes arranges nutshell boats on a shallow bowl of water, blowing tiny puffs to make them glide, a dream of future summer days at the brook. Robert opens the door and steps into the hush. Snowflakes drift, fat and unhurried, landing on his sleeve to melt into dark blooms. He listens to the distant gurgle of the brook under its glassy roof, to the soft creak of branches bearing snow load, to the gentle moo of the cow shifting in her stall. Nothing dramatic arrests the moment. No storm, no cry, only the slow pulse of life continuing, wrapped in white. He turns his gaze toward the fields. Beneath that pristine blanket slumber wheat kernels, barley roots, rye crowns, small hearts beating slowly in vegetal sleep. He recalls the feel of soil between fingers, the scent of rain after ploughing, the thrill of first green spears piercing forward ground. He remembers the ache of haymaking, the warm scrape of flails against straw, the crisp whisper of winnowed grain raining into a trough. He knows each stage will repeat, not precisely but faithfully, altered only by the subtle hand of chance that spices every year. Robert kneels, scoops a handful of snow, and squeezes lightly. Water beads between gloved fingers, future drink for soil and seed. He smiles, stands, and breathes deep the clean air. Behind him, the cottage door opens. Alice's voice, low and even, floats out. "Come in, the porridge waits." He nods, footsteps crunching back over his prints, fresh marks overlaying old, always renewing. Inside, the family gathers at the table. Steam rises from wooden bowls, curling like ghost ribbons around candle flames. They bow heads while Robert murmurs thanksgiving, not only for food, not only for shelter, but for each task completed, each breath drawn in harmony with land and season. His words are plain: seeds, sun, rain, hands. Yet they carry the weight of cathedral stone when joined to steady hearts. The year behind is braided into their muscles and memories. The year ahead lies coiled like a seed inside the dark. After breakfast, Robert will tend to animals, mend a trace chain, perhaps scrape frost from the byre window so afternoon sun can kindle a little warmth within. Emma will fetch water. William will sweep snow from the byre roof. Agnes will sing to her straw maiden. Alice will rest, hands upon the burgeoning curve where another cycle has already begun. Outside, snow continues, gentle as breath. Its whiteness does not erase the past, but tucks it in, a quilt over fields that have earned their sleep. Within each flake lies a secret blueprint. Meltwater for furrow, moisture for seed, silence for dreaming. When the wheel turns again, when skylarks rise in March, when hedgehogs uncurl beside sun-warmed stooks, this same snow will have seeped deep, remembered only as the shy sparkle on a new blade of grass. For us, too, the tale winds to rest. Close your eyes and listen once more. The echo of a wooden flail against straw. The hush of grain cascading in a winnowing basket. The distant rumble of thunder that never quite found Greenford's valley. Let those sounds merge with your own slow breathing. Feel the gentle weight of blankets, like a field of ripening barley settling under the sun. Know that work done in patience bears quiet fruit, that seasons keep faithful time, and that the turning wheel, though vast, moves on a steady, tender axle. Sleep now, traveler. May your dreams walk gentle furrows. May morning rise soft upon your thoughts. And may the year ahead, like Robert's, unfold in small, sweet labors, each one stitched to the calm rhythm of the earth. Good night.